I didn't like to sit in those, meaningless meetings all the time. Like, I was a project manager. I had to sit like in back-to-back meetings the entire day,
Jeez.
listening to nonsense. And I was like thinking all the time to myself, is this really how I'm like wasting my time, my precious, moment? Time is so counted. You realize this once you get older. And this really fired up my desire to make myself independent.
How old were you when you were feeling that sitting in those project manager meetings and feeling like it was a waste of time?
Well, I felt that my endurance or my tolerance when I was younger was a bit higher. So the older I got, the more I realized I really do not want to do it anymore. But I told to myself, if I'm doing it, then at least I want to be really paid well to do this. This is why I actually became an independent consultant.
What would you tell that person's like that's really not liking their job and sitting in that meetings, like, or maybe your younger self? What would you tell that person?
I would probably tell them this one quote from Mark Zuckerberg.
Do you think it's possible for anyone to become financially independent? What's one, two, maybe three things that you feel like people should know before we talk about financial independence about you?
About me, well, I have quite an international background. I've traveled a lot, so I lived in a few places in Europe, in the Russian-speaking countries, in Southeast Asia as well. And I guess that traveling and discovering and exploring is really a big part of my journey and things that are important to me. And maybe even they have been quite a motivation to reach financial independence, because with financial independence also comes independence of a certain location. You can just work from anywhere, as they say.
Awesome. Yeah, I would say that's a very big driver for me too. So I appreciate you coming on and talking about financial independence, and especially in what I love and why I wanted to reach out to you, apart from being alumni of the same university, is that I'm very fascinated and driven to understand what it takes to reach financial independence. And I feel like it's quite a measurable and easy goal to get to. So for you, like, yeah, just to dive in, like, why has it been so important to, keep aiming for this goal, financial independence?
Well, because I think it all comes down to being financially independent. We all need to pay our bills. We all have our needs and obligations, maybe relatives and people we care about or we need to care for. So finance is a huge part. Not everybody, I think, talks or thinks about this enough. And being financially independent really allows you one big thing, in my opinion. It allows you to say no. If you rely on the income of a certain employer, then you're not always able to say no, or say I have to take care of other things right now. I want to go on an extended holiday, or similar things, right? There are always some constraints. And if your bills are paid, through whatever source of income you generated, then you're basically the master of your universe.
Was there, because a lot of time, like, people who really get fascinated by financial independence, it happens for a long time. Like both you and me, we said that before. Was there any moment in your past or even the childhood where you were like, well, I need to make this happen? Or a moment that you remember about that?
Well, in my childhood, I have to admit, I did not think about financial independence.
No. Or early adulthood.
Early on, yeah. I think that my upbringing sort of was a bit special. Thankfully, my parents did everything to increase my chances in life, and they sent me to a German school by the embassy in Moscow, which really was a very defining thing in my life. You had a selection of people, of other kids in the school, which was very unique. Mostly it were people from diplomats, so they basically traveled all 4 years from country to country, and therefore were able to experience a lot of different continents and countries in a very early stage of their life. And growing up among these kids definitely shaped my desires, my perception of life, my goals, my ambitions. Yeah, I think the defining thing which came out of it was that I always were quite ambitious, even in my younger years. But I always were quite independent in my thinking. I didn't like to be just told what I need to do, if it makes sense, but rather wanted to shape things as I liked them and as I deemed them correct. And I think this was like the beginning of me moving into the direction of one day maybe becoming independent independent of anybody who, might tell me what to do.
Yeah. And did you go, like, right after you leaving university, did you try to go for like something that would make you money in terms of a job, or did you try to go for a business? What was that? What was the path that you wanted to choose for financial independence in the beginning?
Funnily, it really your question is quite correct, or points into the right direction. I started pursuing independence and really designing life as I wanted to be, even when I was still employed. So after university, I thought, okay, I want to have money, because money essentially allows you to invest and allows you to become free. So I told to myself, I want to explore the world and I want to have a good salary and a steep learning curve. So I went to consulting. Consulting allowed me to travel in the world, paid by your employer, which was ideal. Learn a lot, be among ambitious, smart people. Through me being bilingual, I could easily, although I couldn't, do really anything after university, you don't have any real applicable skills. I could speak freely multiple languages, like English and German. So it was an easy decision for my boss back then to tell me, well, whenever you want to fly to Moscow, you can work from our Moscow office, being based in Germany, which was amazing, because it allowed me really to travel back and forth to see friends and family in Moscow, and still then return to Germany, and being awesome. Present in both of the countries.
Excellent. And so when you were working there, were you able to, I guess, like start investing already, or did that happen after you changed job?
No, it took me quite a while. So I did like a mini, basically, financial independence or entrepreneurship after 8 years by becoming a freelance consultant.
Okay.
So before that, what I did is, if I wanted to go to Moscow, let's say, I had my plan, I wanted to spend the summer in Moscow. I chose internships and employers, in this case, the consultancy, which actually had the presence in Moscow. Or I wanted to go to Bangkok, so I chose their young consultants program. They had it like in San Francisco, South Africa, and Bangkok. So I went to Bangkok because I really like Thailand, and I wanted to spend a longer time there. Yeah. But this step to become an independent consultant really requires you to have enough experience under your belt in order to be, taken seriously, because people really pay you good money, so they want to make sure you know what you're talking about.
Yeah, for sure. So for someone who's like maybe, let's say, a bit younger, wanting to really get for financial independence, would you tell them to like still get like experience with maybe a job or in a professional setting, or still try and go for building their own business? Because this is more what I did. Like right after bachelor's, I was like, I want to do my own thing. I don't care. It wasn't easy at all. Like I was just writing blogs for a whole year. It didn't generate anything. I was just living at my parents. And then I started to work with a friend at a startup. Didn't do so well. Then I went back to my thing. And then now I'm working at a startup / like small business that we're actually doing better and better every year. We formed a small team. But I had to do a lot of messiness, like trying to figure out my own shit for quite a few years until now I found like in a business that's actually working. So yeah, if you could do it again, would you still go for like getting experience in an employer, or do your own thing first?
I can't really answer this question, because I did my path. And my thinking behind it, or my pattern, if you want, behind it, was a little bit like in those arcade games back in the days. Not sure if you still know them from your youth, but if you played like Super Mario, you could go like from one level to another, and then in some certain level you could save yourself. That even if you died in this game, you like fell off the cliff, you would not go to field 0, but you would go to field 4 or 5 or 3. And this was sort of my thinking. I need to sort of get more money, in order to have more financial means, maybe get better things, invest, etc. And at the same time, if I then try something and risk something, I do not want to go to like square one. I want to, even if it does not work out, for example, if my real estate thing would not have worked out, or my being an independent consultant gig would not work out, I could easily find a job being employed again. So, and even not that bad, because I had an MBA, I had like a good education, I had good certifications, I had international experience, languages, etc.
Yeah.
So me falling like back or falling down, I would not land that hard. In the other scenario, what you mentioned, I cannot tell if it would be better if I would do it instead, because I did not go that route. I hear a lot that, you got to fail a lot to learn from your failures, but honestly, I fail a lot in my life as well. So I always try to, a little bit fake it till I make it. So I always put myself out and got myself outside of my, I think that is important.
Super important. Very much agree on that. Yeah. And I like what you said, the kind of like building blocks of different skills that you can always fall back on. Because sometimes, I mean, I talk with people who like if they're not as far in life as they want, it's often like not dedicating enough time to doing one single thing that like actually get good at it. So being able to build a like solid base in consulting or whatever, real estate, that could be really powerful. So what was your first investment that you actually went for, that you would actually consider that contributed towards building financial independence?
Honestly speaking, I think it was a different experience which sort of shaped me. It was when I earned my first money. I had two funny stories which I told when I was like interviewing for different positions. The higher you go, the more difficult the interviews get usually, and the more you also get rewarded by being somebody who thinks outside of the box or who did things differently. So one of the stories I used to tell is that when we were like in I don't know, 7th, 8th grade, and we were like the cool kids with like the white pants, and we used to like spray, wanted to be like graffiti guys, and did some breakdancing. Yeah, there were like a lot of people in a quite a protected, safe environment. They used to live like in these compounds belonging to the German government and the like embassy territory or territory of the school. But I was living in my just normal Russian neighborhood. I grew up in a 17-story huge house, and it was like middle class, absolute middle class. And then, they had like a good spending power. And I thought, okay, I'll just buy some, cheap spray cans and then sell them for profit. In fact, it was like actually more color for painting cars. It was a good deal for them because else they would not know where to buy it. And I did some small money in it. And
nice.
And I think that it was a good venture of mine. Yeah, I think that trying to think outside of the box, how you can make money by applying the skills you have, the situation you're in, just playing the cards which life handed to you right. I think this was the key moment, and I really like a person called Puri. He created actually a very famous podcast called My First Million. It was a big inspiration for me.
I love that podcast.
And he said, I listen to the podcast a lot, or used to listen to it a lot. And he says you just need to find a way how you combine all your different traits and skills, or maybe some weird things about you into one meaningful story. This is something I try to do. And the real investment, of course, which got me on the sure path to financial independence, was for sure my first apartment. This is beyond any doubt.
Awesome. Let's dive into it. First, how old were you when you did that graffiti business?
Well, I guess around 13, 14.
Hell yeah. That's so fun. I think, doing things like that as a kid really shapes the future as well. I don't know if I did anything that young, but I remember selling pancakes in university to fellow students.
Here you go. Goes into the same category, I guess.
100%. So I'd love to hear, talking about real estate then, because I am not at that point where I've purchased any real estate. I like the idea a lot. Seems like there's a lot of moving pieces. So probably you can talk to someone who is either like me or even further along. But I've been doing the safer route, like just stocks, a little crypto actually, too, which is less safe, but lots of stocks. Why did you choose real estate or your first apartment as like that big investment?
Because of OTP. You know what it stands for?
Other people's money.
Exactly.
No.
It does. Other people's money. The thing is, it gets you leverage. It's quite an easy thing. There are no assets where you could go to the bank and say, give me some money. I want to buy a portfolio of stocks, or I want to buy precious metals or whatever. But for real estate, the bank would actually lend you up to 100% without any down payment needed. If you have the solvency and the credibility And here actually comes a very important thing into play. I knew that my net worth was not in my bank account, because my bank account was never too full. I traveled a lot, I spent a lot, I invested also a lot in my education, and my net worth came more from the human capital. So being able to generate, I don't know, a 5-figure salary the moment you actually enter the labor market, and you can always find a good position. So I was thinking, okay, if I just do these jobs, I need to trade time versus money, which I don't like. How can I leverage this human capital which I built in a different way? And then it dawned on me by real estate, because by going there and showing, look, this is my track record. I always had a good job which paid well, and I have a good education, and I have a German passport. All these pieces make you a good person to give a mortgage to. For German or European banks. And this was a way for me to leverage actually my profile, my CV. So they would lend me money. So basically they take me as a collateral, more or less, and of course the real estate piece as well. And in combination, they assess the risk of me failing to pay the money back, and for them needing to, take away, for example, the property and then sell it themselves. And if the risk is not too big, so you've been in the workforce for long enough, you earn good money, you have some savings, then they can give you up to 100% of the loan. And this was like a very instrumental point, which I realized by talking, I think, to a colleague of mine who told me he has 4 apartments, and it was in 2020. This was the turning point where I realized, okay, I need to get going, because it's just a no-brainer that you basically can put zero money down and then operate with a piece of asset which is worth 200, 300, 400,000 euros.
So you got 100% mortgage, or?
I got 100% mortgage, but you need to pay some additional purchasing costs in Germany. They amount to approximately 13%. So it's still, let's say, could be 15 to 20,000 you need, but then you can buy an apartment which is, I don't know, 150 to 200,000 euros.
Okay, interesting. Never heard of the 100% mortgage. Because in Spain, they say you need to have a down payment of like 37%, which is super high. Is that similar in Germany, or the Germany is very different in this case?
No, it's very different. It's very different. I would not invest in Spain, first of all, because of this. Not because Spain is a bad market. I love Spain, but they have huge taxes, and this regulation that the banks are not allowed to give 100% mortgages is, honestly speaking, a bit of a showstopper, because the more you need to put down, the less fast you can grow. So you need to be very careful by not spending too much money on these additional purchasing costs, or in general for buying each apartment, because it really does not move the needle if you have one. You need to have several of them in order to reach that goal of financial independence, not like in 20 years, but in, let's say, how I did, like 3 to 4 years.
Yeah, for sure. So you got one apartment first, or was this apartment building, or just one apartment?
I bought 2 apartments in a basket.
Cool. And were you living in one, or you're renting out both?
No, renting out both. I did it even remotely. So I was living in Zurich in Switzerland, earning good money, obviously, and then invested in Germany, the area where I actually went to university, and where I then spent the first 5 years after university. So I knew the area very well. I had like a little network there, but not really. But then, I looked at the prices. I looked what I would get as rental income, and for me, it was a good case.
And what has been your return on investment for these 2 apartments?
It's a bit hard to calculate, because they grow in value every year. And the tenant of mine, or of any real estate owner, pays down the debt with the bank, right? So in general, it was probably somewhere around 5%. So you need a few percentage points to cover the the bank loan, then a few percentage points to cover the interest rate of the bank, then maybe 1 percentage points to cover the taxes, etc. So it should pay like 5%. But then again, it's a little bit like a little company. You have your twists and moving parts. You can alter them, and then the profitability will be different. So for example, I started with a normal rent, but then I renovated the apartment when my tenant moved out. I furnished it, and then I rented it out furnished to expats, and then I basically tripled my rent income.
Oh wow. What made you have that idea?
Yeah, just I think between like having this first inspiration by having
Huh.
lunch with this guy at my work and buying my first apartment was 1 year when I just consumed everything I could get my hands on,
Mm,
like all the
nice.
books which were recommended. I watched all the YouTube videos, so I really got a big knowledge base before I actually pulled the trigger. And I knew that, of course, different ways of renting out your real estate can yield in different profitability.
100%. Like me and my partner, we were living in Spain and we would have one big apartment and then rent out a couple of the rooms there. So we had a like 3 room place. So that's always, I think that's easier. But so you researched a lot, then you pulled the trigger. Now you've renovated. Have you been? What's your goal for like every year? Are you trying to like get one more apartment every year, or what's the long term the goal here?
I people always need some goals. They always
Yeah.
ask, "What's your goal?" I think my goal is not really to tell you I want to have like 500 to
Ah.
1,000 apartments or 100 apartments.
Mm.
It is rather to preserve my lifestyle. I'm
Mm.
quite happy with my life right now. I don't think that if my car would be more expensive, I don't have a very fancy car, that it would give me more happiness.
Yeah.
And I think right now I have a lot of independence. I can, really decide on what I work, with whom I work, where I
Mm.
work. So this is, I think, the most important part for me. So it would be good to maintain this independence and
Mm.
obviously grow your business, because who doesn't want more money? I'll
Yeah.
not pretend to want it, but it always comes down to the question, at what price? And I think this is
Totally.
where, yeah, a lot of people fall short. They want to be
Mm.
millionaires, but forget that they will probably be trapped in a golden cage.
Yeah, that's a very important key. So if you could, would you want all your income to come from like rental real estate, or would you still want to have your consulting business if you, yeah.
Well, this is just the theory of
Oh,
diversification, right? You don't want to put all your eggs into one
true,
basket.
true.
I have no idea what the German real estate market, how it would look like in 10 to 20 years. Maybe the German government will completely, change the rules. I prefer to have 3 to 4 income streams.
Awesome, awesome. And what's the balance between these now, like percentage wise?
Oh, it's heavily skewed towards, well, no, it's not actually not anymore. Right now, it's rental income,
Hmm.
still a bit of consultancy, which I completely do in my terms. Also remotely, the projects
Hmm.
are, or one project still got left as it has like a 40% utilization, where I just spent
Hmm.
like a few hours maybe. And then the third pillar is something which I'm probably most proud of. I started my mentorship program to teach people how to buy real estate in Germany, people outside of Germany who wants to invest there. Just because,
Mm.
I went that route, I know exactly how to do it. I have
Yeah.
my network of, bankers and brokers and real
Mm.
estate agents and everybody. So it's probably the most fun income stream right now. And I love just how it feels to help people and see them achieving results. And yeah, this is the third pillar right now. So it's like divided between the three of those. If I
Cool.
could choose, yeah, I would probably choose a fourth pillar of having a
Mm.
lot of, I don't know, I invest in crypto a bit, so having like a staking income and have the appreciation of some
Mm. Mm.
good coins, good tokens would be ideally the fourth pillar, but I'm not so heavily invested that it
Yeah.
would actually move the needle right now.
Awesome. I'm really cool that you're able to diversify like this. In terms of, so this is in terms of income. How about energy and time? Are they also quite equally? You putting your time into these 3, 4 pillars. How does that
Well,
balance?
well, right now, because I own like a higher amount of properties, of apartments,
Hmm.
I have like my systems built out. I have some people who work for me
Mm.
and help me with everything, with all the
Cool.
different tasks. I have
Mm.
like my asset management company in Germany, which basically manages my assets. When I did not have this, so prior to that, I invested like maybe I would say like 10 hours a week
Okay.
into like growing and maintaining. It was like usually tenant communication, then calling some handyman to repair the sink, etc., etc. So
Mm.
I didn't have the system, so I did everything myself. And right now, the majority of my time actually goes into building up my mentoring program program, make it better, pay attention to the feedback of my clients, talk to some
Excellent.
prospect clients. I still have a lot of interest coming from friends, colleagues, people who follow me on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and because of all these questions, it actually triggered me or got me into the position where I started offering this mentoring program just because due to popular demand.
I bet. Yeah, for sure. Hey, man, and if you ever need any support, like online education, this is the space that you're in right now. Like helping people online, like it's what we do as well. It's I love it. Like working online, can't go back to working in person anymore once you do that.
Yeah, this is true. Yeah, that's it's amazing, and it also gives like a whole a lot of different opportunities for people who cannot be in a certain place and take the advantages of living in Germany, but can just be able to invest from outside or remotely.
Totally. Do you think it's possible for anyone to become financially independent?
Yes.
Can you tell me why?
Well, I think that's yes, but of course there's like a certain condition. You need to be really, really willing to do that. Mm-hmm. I think that everybody can get filthy rich, but I will not get filthy rich due to a very easy reason. I do not really want it bad enough. I know that, I have right now almost like everything what I need, what like contributes to my happiness level, and having like a lot of money or millions and gazillions of money in a bank account, they will not lead to a happier life. Right now I spend a lot of time with my family, with my friends, with my girlfriends. I travel a lot. I'm free. I get to decide what to do, and I do not want it to trade for money. That's why probably I will not get like super rich because I don't want it badly enough. Same goes for financial independence. I really wanted it badly. I didn't like to sit in those, meaningless meetings all the time. Like, I was a project manager, had to sit like in back-to-back meetings the entire day, listening to nonsense. And I was like thinking all the time to myself, is this really how I'm like wasting my time, my precious, moments, which, the time is so counted, you realize this once you get older. And this really fired up my desire to make myself independent. So everybody who really desires it can do it. I'm absolutely sure about this.
How old were you when you were feeling that sitting in those project manager meetings and feeling like it was a waste of time?
Well, I felt that my endurance or my tolerance when I was younger was a bit higher. So the older I got, the more I realized I really do not want to do it anymore. But I told to myself, if I'm doing it, then at least I want to be really paid well to do this. This is why I actually became an independent consultant, because then you essentially cut out the middleman. So you basically go on your own. You take the risk that if you have a project, you get paid. If you don't have a project, you don't get paid. But on the upside of it, you also take like the entire pay, which usually would pay for the marketing department, the HR department, the pay of the CEO, whatever. It's being like factored into your salary, or as a consultant especially, all the overhead costs actually factored into your rate, and the client pays for your rent. For your rate, daily rate. And then if you become an independent consultant, then it's cheaper for the client to hire you, and you get like maybe 30, 40, 50, sometimes 100% more of the pay on a daily basis. So it was for me that, this moment where I said, okay, if I'm going to do it, then at least I want to get paid well so I can take the money and invest it into cash flowing assets, real estate.
Awesome. So what would you tell, like, because taking a leap like that, going independent can still be a bit scary. I know my dad did it as well. Like I'd say I'm quite familiar with it. But a lot of people, like I know a lot of friends, like maybe they don't like their job, but they're like just save or invest into financial independence, whatever. But what would you tell that person's like that's really not liking their job and sitting in that meetings, like, or maybe your younger self? What would you tell that person?
I would probably tell them this one quote from Mark Zuckerberg, that in a world which is constantly changing, the biggest risk is to not take any risk at all. I personally did not have problems with this. I think that it's a bit due to my upbringing, that I grew up in Moscow and Russia. Nothing was really functioning back then. There was a lot of crime. It was 90s in Moscow, and it teaches you to be resourceful, to adapt to risk, to adapt to non-functioning systems, find your own way, find some workarounds, etc. So when I came to Europe, I had that mindset, which I grew up with, and it helped me take more risks. But in general, to people, I think coming mainly from Western countries, I think that it's just there is nothing there's nothing very risky about actually not going where everybody's going and actually taking a D route through, off the beaten path. If you just, take a risk, do something different, you always can go back. I think that one very defining moment was, so I always had the Russian citizenship. Having the Russian citizenship made me really like sweat, because I knew if I do not perform in university, if something does not work out, I have 1 year to find a job, they will just send me back to Moscow. And life in Moscow is hard. You either hustle or you fall down really badly. I had like a lot of examples where some family member needed a surgery and people used to sell their cars, sell their apartments, sell their houses in order to get that treatment. This is a level of risk which is beyond something people in Western Europe really know. The people I met, at least, obviously in university, have different people than growing up in harsher conditions. So once I got the German passport, it was the first time where I actually had to sigh of relief, because I knew exactly, right now, what should happen. Even if I lose my job, they will, pay me for a flat screen TV and then give me like close to 1,000 euros per month and all the, different insurances. So my biggest advice is to people maybe from Western Europe is to not be afraid. You always can go back to your best life, and maybe a good saying is make your worst case scenario the best case scenario of the normal people. So even if you take a risk, doesn't work out, well, then you just go back to the job where everybody was happy to even have it in the first place. You will not lose anything.
Awesome. Make your worst case scenario the best case scenario that other people would have. Yeah. Excellent. That's really powerful. Yeah, super powerful. Last thing I'm curious if you have an answer for it. Like, what's something that you believe now that you didn't believe maybe 5 or 10 years ago, if anything comes to mind?
That's a good question. I cannot really remember all of my thinking and my thinking patterns and my belief systems. I think I always read a lot of books. I always was very curious. I loved reading, loved educating myself. So I had a fairly realistic understanding of life and what matters, what does not matter. I think one important part what changed is, and this was influenced by, it's almost like an urban legend by now. So there was a woman working in like a place where people die. I do not get like the exact English term for this, like a dying house. And she used to work there for 30 years, listening to the regrets of people who die. They're really lying on the dying bed, and there were like 5 regrets. And one of the regrets was not spending enough time with like people whom they love, and then people they loved and by whom they were loved back. And I think this is something which changed with age, that just spending quality time with people I really like to be with became a very important piece of my life. Like, my parents are getting older. I'm super happy that I'm seeing them once a month. I'm like traveling, to see my real estate, also see my parents, see my friends, which I know for like 20 years. This is something I did not really value enough back then when I was like in my mid-20s, but it definitely became a more integral part of my value systems by now.
Awesome. Yeah, I remember that. I think it's a book as well, The 5 Regrets of the Dying. Yeah, a super powerful book.
Well, you can save the book, because the some books just need to be an article. This is a classic example. You can just read an article. Just examples repeating themselves.
As ChatGPT, even easier.
Exactly. Precisely.
Awesome. So, man, appreciate you a lot. Love the stories. Where, if people want to either get the mentorship or even just like connect with you, learn more about you, where can they reach out?
For now, my LinkedIn is way more my go-to source if somebody wants to reach out. But I will build up my my Instagram channel for my mentoring program, and in general, where I will be speaking about financial independence and how to reach it with real estate. So LinkedIn and Instagram, I can give you the links afterwards.
Oh yeah. Vitaly, how do you say your last name?
Oh, it's complicated. It's a Podkopaev.
Podkopaev.
Yes.
Oh yeah, not too bad.
You cannot imagine how often in my life I already needed to spell it. It's countless times.
Perfect. It'll be written down anyway, so it's easy. Good.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.